Hi there, Chris here with another quick tip for y'all. In this video, we're going to be looking at loading on a paintbrush as well as cleaning the brush. And so this video, I guess we're going to cover a couple things really quickly here. And one of the questions I often get asked is, what sort of brushes am I using? And so here's a little assortment of the brushes that I have. I got more, but this is just kind of a broad overview of which brushes I tend to use. And so you can see, starting from the bottom, I've got Vallejo Synthetics, as well as Games Workshop and Citadel brushes. And as you can see, I've got Winsor Newtons as well. And you can see here's just a quick comparison of the fine detail brush to the Winsor Newton Zero. And this is the Series 7 miniature. I often use that one for doing eyes, fine lines, and such. And also just another generic synthetic brush as well. Often in the videos that when I'm painting, I'm often just using the Citadel brushes or using the Series 7 brush as well, often for the fine details and such. I'm not a huge fan of synthetic brushes, just simply because they don't have the same draw as a sable brush does. And so let's get to using some paint. Here I'm just using a little pot of Citadel paint. This is from the current line. And so loading the brush, well, let's get started. Loading the brush. Here I'm just using a basic base coating brush. Never draw your brush into the paint pot. Use the little lip. So when you're shaking your paints and, the little paint will collect up on that lid. And you should always be shaking your paints because that ensures that the medium and the pigment are mixing properly. And so here I'm just quickly showing how I load the brush often. You see the paint is only halfway up the bristles. And the way I was drawing is turning a 180 to get a flat edge to the brush. And if you want to maintain a sharp point to the brush, gently turn the brush as you're drawing the paint on the palette. And for anybody out there, you should always be using a palette when you're painting, so that when you're drawing your paint out, you're not just simply, exposing the whole paint pot to the air. And in here, I'm just showing a quick what not to do. And you can see the paint gets all the way up into the ferrule, which is that metal part in the brush. If you're drawing your paint like that, and the paint is getting all up into the ferrule, the paint will dry and clump, and then often that causes the splaying in the hairs, and so don't do that. Really quickly here, I'm just showing when I'm drawing a bit of water, and that was a heavy load on the brush. If you go back a sec, you'll see that there was quite a bit of water onto the bristles. And often whenever I'm using the palette, I often start at the bottom end of the little dollop of paint and then mix in, and then so that way I can draw in more paint into that little water and mix accordingly. And so often that's just experience that will kind of get you to that point. And here I'm just quickly using a Vallejo synthetic. It doesn't have to be a Vallejo synthetic, it can be any synthetic brushes you use. And often when you have the paint in a very thin consistency, the paint will drop rapidly up into the bristles and often will get into the furrow, and it often mess your brush up. And so normally whenever you have a thin paint, I always kind of just lightly draw the tip into the paint, and I don't overwork the brush onto the palette, because again, it'll draw too much paint up in there. And so often that's why I stick with the sable haired brushes. And for your $1, really the Citadel brushes just are not that bad a purchase. And so here I'm just demonstrating when I'm loading a brush, and this is the fine detail brush in the thinner or thicker paint. To maintain that point, I'm turning the brush as I'm drawing it along the palette. And again, it's like at basically a 45-degree angle that I'm holding that brush to the palette. And so again, here's the Series 7 miniature from Winsor Newton. And again, you're just simply drawing in very little, and it's a very light pressure. I'm just demonstrating just kind of how the paint flows from the brush. And so you can see it's just very quickly like that, right? And so on to our next little topic here is cleaning the brush. So here, for example, I'm just quickly mashing the paint around into the bristles. And often when you're dry brushing, you'll really mash the pigment into your bristles, and then the paint will stay. And blue and red tend to stay the most, and black tend to stay the most within the brush. And so after just quickly rinsing off the brush, you can see there's still, the brush looks pretty clean, right? But as you'll see here with this indispensable tool that I can't recommend this enough, is this brush cleaner and preserver. And everybody should have this if they intend to take care of the brushes. And when we're spending lots of money on our brushes, why not take care of your brush? And so you can see here I got a fairly heavy load of water onto the brush, and I'm just quickly lathering it up onto the soap, and then in my hand I will move the brush back and forth, often just kind of 180 turn it and then drawing it. And it's okay to do this into your hand like this, as it's the best way to wash your bristles. And don't worry, it's not gonna kill you or anything. That's not poisonous, although I wouldn't eat it. But and so when you rinse the brush off, the hairs will often be splayed. And so really quickly, you just again take a little bit of the soap into the clean area, and with your fingertips you can draw the bristles back into a point. And so I'm using 3 fingers here, and I'm just gently drawing the bristles back in, and that's essentially it. And of course, once that dries, those bristles are well conditioned and ready to go again, and they won't splay out on you, and that's it. And so hopefully you found that quick tip video informative and useful. For the next quick tip video, leave a comment below, or if somebody beats you to it, give that comment a thumbs up. And we'll see you in the next video. Happy wargaming.